One of the powerful SQL select statements featured is to group data by certain column such that we can get summarized information to help us to make informed decision. And so far we have covered part of the big six, which is a select clause, from clause, where clause, and order by clause. The remaining two are group by and having. So we're going to tackle these two clauses in SQL select statement in this lecture. And let's look at our instructor table first. And there are detailed information in some database. A table could have millions of records, and it's impossible for decision maker to go through all the detailed record. So a lot of time they would like to group data based on certain column, such as sales data by the sales channel, by the region, by store, etc. And that's where the group by concept come from. And because the aggregate data allowed us to zoom in on a particular factor or group that affect the performance of sales and or other area. So if we have a select statement such as this one for the instructor, from the instructor table, and we kind of group the instructor information by the division. One thing to be aware in this case, we haven't used group by yet. So we kind of sorted by the division such that you can see the grouping. So for instance, we have only one instructor in division 10, and we have 3 instructor in division 20. Okay, so technically we have actually only 2 group. We have a very small sample data set in this table just to keep things simple. Real world table can certainly have many group and even more detailed row. And once we have this grouping, then it will be very interesting to know, for instance, average salary in each of the division. Okay, thinking about division like department, or how many instructor we have in each of the division. And that's kind of the descriptive statistic or summary kind of aggregated data they would like to see. So if we think about it from a kind of report viewpoint, generating a report with aggregated information like sum, average, minimum, maxima. So we will group the data by division. Okay, that's kind of in SQL that will be grouped by div, which is division ID. That's indicating the division the instructor works for. Then we can get the total sum is the total salary, average salary, minimum, maximum salary. Okay, and in the report we can still get the detailed row if we want, but not in official SQL. Okay, just want to clarify that. So this is a kind of a typical report format, not the result of SQL. So don't get confused. And we can look at the division 20, division 20's information. We can certainly see the detail, like we can see the detail here. But if you want to get the aggregated information, like sum, average, minimum, maximum, then we're seeing the result. In typical report writer, we sometimes at the very end, we have this kind of grand total or grand average of everybody. Not grouped by a division. The minima of all the instructor, the maximum of all the instructor. We can do that in SQL with a separate SQL statement without group by, then we can get this kind of grand total in terms of summary, average, minima, and maxima. Okay, so let's continue. This just sidetrack a little bit. This is in Access. There's a report wizard, which is like a report writer. And we can use, let's say, the instructor table, and we can decide it, which column, like div, is the column we want to use for group by. Okay, and then we can decide it, what kind of what column we would like to select. For instance, we can say we want to select salary and last name, etc. And if you click summary option, then you can decide what kind of aggregate functions that you would like to select over certain column. And since sum, average, minimum, maxima, particular sum, and average, that's really work with only with numerical columns. So that's why only salary is displayed here for you to apply the aggregate function. Okay, and in SQL, basically you're only going to see the summary data. You're not going to see the detailed row. You need to use a separate SQL statement if you want to see the detailed row. This is a visual. This is done in cloud.ai. Very similar to what we have. And so basically we're doing the group by and by the division ID. So we only have two group or two row here, which indicating two group, department 01, department 02. And then we can apply the aggregate function, which is the sum for each of the division, the average salary, minima, and maxima salary. Grand total in SQL, it doesn't give you the grand total in a single SQL statement along with the sum group by aggregate function with sum, average, and minima. You have to do it separately. Okay, so this is the SQL statement, which will give you actually this portion. Okay, this portion over here. Okay, without the grand total. So the key rule, if we look at the SQL statement here, is the select column must be in group by or wrapped in an aggregate function. Okay, what does that mean? Which means the column that we use here, allow me to, let's see, ink color. Okay, the column that we use in the select clause has to be either in the group by, which means I pick div because it's in the group by, so that's valid. And other column like salary here, it has to be wrapped in aggregate function if salary is not in the group by clause. Okay, that's what this means. And that's very important. Okay, you need to fully understand this. The aggregate function are sum, average, minima, maxima, and count. Count how many detailed row belong to a particular group. And having is a filtering mechanism work with group, which is similar to where, which work with the detailed row in a select statement. Having is equivalent of where, but only work with the group, which is the group by result. So you can say having average, which is, for instance, greater than 50K, then only this group will be displayed. Okay, that's where having will be used. Okay. So we'll discuss group by and having one at a time. To iterate what we just mentioned, so you will see if just any column in the select with group by, that column without aggregate function has to be in the group by, like title here. So this select statement, select title, aggregate function sum, salary from instruction table, group by title. In this case, we're getting this, which means that the total salary we're paying for each job title, like clerk, is 22K, dean is 72K, and teacher is 108K. However, we pretty much need to know how many instructor has this title. Otherwise, just look at the sum. May be misleading. You say, "Oh, teacher makes a lot of money." No, that's the sum of salary of all the teachers. Okay. So once again, the column in the group by can be used in the select statement, and all the other column can be used in the aggregate function, but other column tends to be column with numerical data type. Okay. You can still have where clause, but that apply to each of the detail row as a filter. And when you do group by, although you kind of group, for instance, division by the division, does not guarantee it's sorted by the division. Okay, it may give us impression. The result like this may give us impression it's sorted by the division. That's not guaranteed. So you can still use group by. You say group by. You can use order by, say division, to make sure the result after the group by will be displayed in certain order, okay, based on your liking. Okay, so that's what you may have to do. Sometimes group by will give you the information as a group in the order that you want without order by, but that's not guaranteed. Okay. This part is in Microsoft Access. We're not going to discuss it here. Having is the equivalent of where clause, which is the filtering criteria over the group by result. And so in this case, we're saying that we would like to see the title and the average salary for each of the unique title. In this case, although we don't have to say distinct, but it since we group by the title, so the title which will be displayed, let me see whether we have the title we're going to display will be unique, okay, because that's the nature of group by, because we group by the value of the title. If we have the same value, we collapse it and put it in the same group. Therefore, the final title that's displayed in this select statement will be unique. Okay. And once we have done that group by, then we can use the aggregate function count to count how many instructor we have in under each title. Okay. If the count for the employee with the same title is greater than 1, then we're going to show the result. Okay, there's a technical reason or privacy reason that we're doing this, because if you're revealing average salary of each of the job title when some title has only one employee with that title, then you basically publish the salary of that person who is the only person that has the title. Okay, so if salary is not public information and you do want some aggregated statistic data about salary based on the title, then this will prevent you to reveal in that special case an individual's salary. To play really safe, you may want to make this 2 or even 3 just in case. Because if you say greater than 1, if it's only 2 persons with the same title, if you publish the average salary, then the 2 individuals in that with that same title would know each other's salary. Because they know their salary, they know the average salary with the title, they can derive the salary of another person. Okay? And you want to prevent that. And that's why I'm saying that this you may want to use at least 2 and probably even 3 or 5. This is how you use having. You can use aggregate function in having. You cannot use aggregate function in the where clause. You could have a where clause in the select statement with group by, but that where clause cannot use aggregate function. Having can use aggregate function. Okay. So this is we're using once again we're using select statement with group by with having, as we indicated previously. In this case, we're calculating the weekly average salary to 2 decimal place. This is the annual salary divided by 52, 52 weeks a year. So that technically gives you an average weekly salary to 2 decimal place. Run this a numerical function and apply to that weekly salary and only take 2 decimal place. Okay. So that's what we're getting at the end. This is in Access, how you set it up. We're not going to discuss it. So group by, combine row into group and do not sort by the group by column. By default, you cannot assume it's sorted by the group by column. Order by allow you to just make sure you're sorting it by certain column that you would like. And just to summarize it, why we use group by? Because group by, for instance, if you want to get some summary statistic by the department or by the product or by the category, without group by, you pretty much need to write many SQL select statement, like select certain information and average salary by where the department ID is equal to department 10, department 20, department whatever. You have to do for each department, you have to do a SQL select statement, and group by give you all of that in one select statement. So that certainly makes your job in your life much easier. Okay. The aggregate information can be used for business reporting because managers usually want to look at summarized data. And you can also display that information and feed it into digital dashboard. For instance, active user on daily basis, and the revenue based on some time period, such as a month, and the churn rate of customer on quarterly basis, etc. And it can be also used to feed the data analytics pipeline. For instance, feed the aggregated data into a BI, business intelligence tool, such as Tableau or Power BI. And it also can serve as features in machine learning algorithm or in some generated report. Having is having applied to groups that through group by. And in this case, if you look at this select statement here, the where clause, you can use where clause in the select statement that has group by, but you cannot use aggregate function like here, okay? And you actually need to write having, usually after group by, okay? You could have like where, you can say where, for instance, employee would hired after a certain day, and that is okay. Okay. So having allow you to find active customer. For instance, you can query the database and find how many customer has placed more than 5 orders during a certain period of time, and you treat those as a very active, frequent customers. And you can also look at product category that generate revenue, let's say more than 10K. So you can zoom in on those groups, not all the product category, but the category that generate certain revenue beyond certain amount. You can also detect duplicates. And for instance, if somehow certain column should not have duplicated value, you can actually use group by that value of certain column, and then if they have count more than 1, then you know there's a duplicate that could trigger further investigation. And you can also look at some quality threshold. For instance, customer rating. Then you have detailed rating for all the customer based on certain certain category, and then for certain category, let's say store, if the average rating is below 3.0, then that store has a kind of customer satisfaction problem that's worth your attention. So this is how we use why, and with having to do this additional filtering after group by. So this is an infographic which put it all together, like what is group by, what is having, and why it's important, and how to do it. It's self-explanatory. You may want to pause the video and study this infographic more, and so you have a good mental model what it is, why we're using it, and then how to use it. Okay, and it's kind of self-explanatory. So study this a little bit. And there's one advanced topic, we call it order of execution, which means that if you have a SQL select statement, we have several clauses in the SQL statement, and which clause will be executed, will be run first. This is officially the sequencing from or join. We haven't talked about join, but like which table that you have the data. Okay. And then you will do the filtering of the detail row regarding the where clause. So the where clause will select only the row that you're interested in. If there's a group by, then you will do the group by. Okay, you will do the group by, do the grouping. And after group by, you would apply the filter over the group through the having clause. And then you will select what column you would like to see, and what aggregate function do you would like to apply to certain column. And if you do have group by, then the column that you selected has to be in the group by clause, and then the aggregate function can apply to other column if you wish. Distinct. If there's a distinct keyword, you apply the distinct keyword, and then you can sort the result set after group by and having. And then at the very end, you put limit. This is why we usually put limit, if any, at the very end. So that's the execution sequence, and usually we will write it in this sequence. You don't have to use all the clauses, but if you have all of them, this is the sequence. Just very briefly, we talk about single row function, string function, datetime functions, and the function certainly apply in your select clause. And you can apply that to string character and numerical function, datetime function, conversion function, which is a little more advanced, and some general function. We have seen if now earlier, that's much more advanced. For instance, for string function, convert everything to uppercase, concatenate two string together, or extract part of a string. We call it substring function. Doing rounding, get the absolute value and find the ceiling of a numerical number. On current day, get the year based on the date column, and date difference, compare the difference between 2 days, and etc. Okay. It operates on one row. That's why we call it single row function. They return a single value. It's used in the select clause, and it's done row by row. This is not difficult. Substring, you get substring. Like we get the first 4 characters from 1 to 4. 4 characters from the division name. So we kind of show the abbreviated division name. In this case, the first 4 characters, okay, not the standard abbreviation. Okay. In SQL, in Microsoft Access SQL, the way you write it are different. You use a different function. Okay. Truncate. In this case, we're not showing actually. You can truncate a number and only display up to d decimal position, and you can do rounding. Okay, rounding and truncate. We're not showing the truncate. However, I do want to show one datetime function, which is show the timestamp difference. In this case, we have in our instructor table, we have date of birth. Okay, and then we kind of compare the time difference by year with the date of with the date of birth. So basically, we're comparing these two days, the current day and date of birth of the instructor, and find the difference in terms of the year. Okay, so there are three parameters. The two dates which we want to compare, and only calculate the difference in terms of the year, not month, not day, but year. And that actually gives us the age of the employee. And this coming very handy because sometimes we do need to calculate the age of employee student and for certain analysis. But our database table typically don't store age. We store date of birth because date of birth will not change. When you need age, which is a derived attribute or calculated column, you use timestamp diff function to calculate it. Okay, and that's very useful. Okay, and so depends on the date or daytime function that you can use on in Access SQL. This is equivalent way of getting the age. And in Oracle, this is another way. So this is where different SQL implementation in different DBMS may vary. Okay, so that's pretty much it. The most important thing is group by and having, and we cover a little bit of single row function. When we come back, we're going to discuss join, getting data from more than one table, a very important feature in SQL, in SQL select statement. So until next time, bye-bye.